Welcome to Think Over Here, the show where we hop all over the world and learn about different peoples, cultures, and stories. And today we're going to be thinking over in Turkey, as we have been for the past couple of episodes. And I have a feeling that this will probably be our last one in Turkey for quite a while, as we've been in Turkey for quite a bit, debating whether or not we want to talk about Turkish delight or save that for the future. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. But today we are going to be talking about a Turkish folktale, fairy tale, that was written down by Ignac Kunos. I apologize that I probably just slaughtered that poor man's name. He was a famous Hungarian folklorist who recorded this story. The story is The 40 Princes and the Seven-Headed Dragon, and of course I modified it a little bit from Ignac Kunos, as one does any time that they're sharing a story. And so we're going to hear in this story about, 40 princes and a seven-headed dragon. Who knows, we might even throw in a magical horse, throw in a little bit of love. Who knows? We just gotta wait. You just gotta wait until I tell you the story. Now, won't you? There you go. So let's enough baiting. Let's just jump right in. Okay. There was once a padishah who had 40 sons. Let me say that again. 40 sons. There was 40 of these brothers. And even though there were more brothers than there were people in most of my high school classes, these brothers, they were tight. They were extremely close-knit. They were inseparable. They wouldn't fight. I mean, I grew up with 3 brothers and we would fight all the time. I mean, not really, just a little bit. But these brothers, they were best of friends. They would go and spend the whole day in the forest, just hunting, snaring birds, enjoying each other's company, telling jokes, just having a grand old time. Now, when the youngest brother turned 14 years old, their father thought that it was high time that they should be getting married. Now, 14 is a little bit young nowadays, but it was a different time back then. And so the padishah, he called all his sons together and spoke to them about the matter. You know, in one of those type of family council meetings, where everybody supposedly has a say, but it's really kind of more of a family dictatorship from mom and dad. But I digress. And now the brothers, understanding what their father meant by family council, they didn't want to make a big deal, a big fuss out of things. And so they said, "Father, we are willing to marry, but we have one stipulation. And that is only if we can meet and marry 40 sisters who are all from the same father and mother. There are 40 brothers. We want to marry 40 sisters." Because, you see, the brothers, they knew that if they were to get married to young women of different families, that they would start to drift apart as brothers. Their cohesion would be lost. And they were not about to let that happen. And so the padishah, he went up and down through his land searching for such a family that had 40 sisters. But it was all for nothing, for no family in the kingdom had 40 sisters who had the same father and mother. The closest that the padishah could find was a family with 39 sisters. So the padishah thought that was good enough, and he said, "Well, sons, the 40th will have to come from another family." But the sons, they refused to that. And so they asked their father that if they couldn't get married, that perhaps he would let them go travel some foreign countries in order to seek their desired brides, and get some good bro time in, And so what was the padishah to do? He couldn't dissuade them. And so he grudgingly granted their request. But before they set out, the padishah said to them, in another one of those family councils, he said, "There are 3 things which you must bear in mind. When you reach a large spring, do not spend the night anywhere near it. And then farther on, there is an inn. and do not spend the night there either. And beyond the inn is a great plain, and for no reason should you ever linger there, not even for a moment." And the sons, promising to remember their father's advice, well, they mounted their steeds and they rode off. Talking and enjoying each other's company, smoking. Unfortunately, they didn't understand the negative health effects of smoking at that time. And so they went on their journey, they moved forward, and then as evening drew on, well, lo and behold, they came up next to a large spring. Now, the eldest son said, "We can't take a single step farther. We are fatigued. This is night. We must stay here by the spring." You see, he must have learned how to lead a family council just like his dad. "So we must spend the night here. What do 40 men have to fear? Why do we need to listen to our father?" And so they all got off their horses, sat down, had their dinner, and laid down to the rest. But the youngest, the 14-year-old brother, he couldn't quite sleep. He felt a little anxious about their father's warning. He didn't like that they were camping at the spring that their father specifically told them not to camp at. And so, not being able to sleep, he decided to keep watch. However, it's a good thing he did, because towards midnight, he heard a rustling sound. Cautiously, carefully, he drew out his weapon, and as the sound came nearer, he saw a head. But he didn't have time to process what the head looked like. No, because even curiouser? It's a word now. Because even more strangely, the head was followed by another head. And then another head, and another, because it was 7-headed. And as the son saw these 7 heads rearing up, he realized that this was no ordinary 7-headed creature. No, this was a 7-headed dragon. So both the dragon and the boy locked eyes with one another. The dragon locked 7 pairs of eyes. And then without saying a word, the two knew exactly what needed to happen. Both the beast and the young man rushed to attack one another. 3 times the dragon tried to wrestle down that youth, but the dragon could not pin him down to eat him, not a single one of those times. Rather, the boy seemed to be able to deflect the dragon's advances with surprisingly great strength. "Ah, now it's my turn," cried the prince, and with these words he struck the dragon down with a powerful blow, such that 6 heads fell off the dragon's body. "Strike once more and finish me off, please," gasped the single remaining head of the dragon. "Not I," returned the youth, and so dying, the dragon sank to the earth. But suddenly, one of the heads that was just previously cut off began to roll, and it rolled, and it rolled, and it rolled, till it reached a well. And then at the edge of the well, it precariously balanced for just a moment. And then it called out, "Let him who has taken my life take also my treasure." And then the head toppled down the well. Choo! Well, the young boy took a rope. You see, you always take a rope when you're adventuring, after all. And he tied one end of the rope to a rock, and then he let himself carefully down the well. And at the bottom of the well, he was very surprised to find a tunnel that was bored into the side of the well. And this tunnel was covered by an iron gate. Unfortunately, the gate was unlocked. I guess the owner figured that a 7-headed dragon, as well as a hidden well entrance, was sufficient security, but I guess not. You live and learn, right? And so slowly, the boy opened the gate and journeyed down the dark tunnel. And as the boy walked down the tunnel slowly began to fill with light. At first, the boy wasn't sure if it was his eyes that were simply adjusting to the darkness, but no, it definitely seemed that the tunnel was growing brighter and brighter. So finally, the tunnel opened up into a large clearing, and that was when he beheld a palace that was even more beautiful than his father's palace. And it was large. Quickly counting, the boy noted that the palace contained 40 apartments. 40. Could it be, he thought? And then on closer inspection, the boy confirmed, yes, that within each apartment there sat a maiden at an embroidery table. Embroidering, because that's what you do at embroidery tables. Ah, yes it is, he thought. I have found a family with 40 sisters for my brother and I to wed. But then the boy took even closer inspection, and he noticed that beside each embroidery table, there was not only your embroidering equipment, but an immense pile of treasures. Now, as the boy stayed staring and counting, the terror-stricken maidens called, "Are you a man or a jinn?" Or now, in Turkish folklore, a jinn or a dew is often associated with kind of a type of a monster, a giant, a type of, otherworldly creature. "Are you a man or a jinn?" asked the terror-stricken maidens, who had been watching the boy as he was accounting the apartments, the girls, and the treasures. "Oh, no, I am a human being," answered the prince. "You see, I killed the seven-headed dragon, and I came to this place by following one of his rolling heads." And hearing this, the 40 maidens rejoiced. They all embraced him, and they begged him to remain with them. Now, after the excitement, and after telling him that the next time he should simply introduce himself, instead of standing there awkwardly counting and observing people, just tell us who you are, the 40 women informed him that they were, in fact, 40 sisters who the dragon had stolen. And not only that, but the dragon had killed their parents, and now they had not a single friend or relationship in the entire world. "Well, I am sorry for your loss, but your fortune has changed, for we are 40 brothers," said the prince. And then he looked around, and he realizing that his brothers weren't with him, he said, "Well, I have the 39 brothers. They're camping. Anyway, there are 40 brothers, and we seek 40 maidens." And now, of course, we're going to assume here that the boy also said that, that the women were free to date and choose if they wanted to get married or not get married. They could do whatever they pleased. That they were in no way obliged to marry all the brothers simply because there was 40 of them and 40 of them, but we're going to assume that for the sake of human rights. And then he told them that he must go to his brothers, and then the boy told the women that he must go back to his brothers, but that he would soon come back. And so the boy, he climbed up back the well, and went back to the spring where he laid down and slept, tired from his night of adventuring alone. And so early the next morning, when the 40 brothers awoke, they began to laugh at their father's attempt to frighten them about camping at the large spring, for nothing happened. What was he so worried about? I haven't slept harder since that time I drank those 5 glasses of herbal tea. Ugh! This was such a great place to camp. What was our father thinking? But all the youngest brother could say was, "Yeah, a nice spring, I guess," as he clumsily tried to wake up. And so they set off again, the 40 brothers, and they continued on their way, on their journey, on their adventure until evening, when, lo and behold, the inn that their father had warned them about stood before them. And then again the eldest son called a family council and said, "Brothers, we can go no farther tonight. Here we rest, here we camp, and here we disregard our father's warning." Now the youngest expressed that maybe it would be good to find a different campground, follow their father's advice, but the other brothers would not listen to him. I mean, why would they? Their father was wrong about camping at the lovely spring, right? I mean, they didn't know about the dragon. And so the brothers ate their supper, said their prayers, laid down, and again, the youngest kept watch as before. And good thing he did, because again, towards midnight, he heard a noise, but unsurprised this time, the boy said, "Not again." And then with his drawn sword in hand, the young prince found himself confronting yet another seven-headed dragon, larger and more frightful than the one that he had just slain the day before. The dragon again attacked the youth, but again without any effect. And then the youth attacked the dragon so furiously that again he lobbed 6 of his 7 heads clean off. And then again the monster begged for mercy to finish him off, but again the prince declined. And again one of the heads rolled down into a nearby well. And again the youth followed the head down the well and discovered a larger palace and greater treasures. But this time there were no women. So noting the palace, he returned to his brothers, laid down and fell asleep so soundly, after fighting yet another larger 7-headed dragon, that his brothers had to rouse him in the morning to wake him up. Of course, the brothers didn't hesitate to make fun of his slothfulness. And so, mounting their horses again, the brothers, they pursued their journey up hills, down valleys, until by sunset they had reached a great plain. The very same great plain that their father had warned them about. Again they ate and they drank, and they were just about to lie down for bed, when suddenly they heard an awful, terrible shrieking noise, and the mountains seemed to quake. Terror seized every one of the brothers as they caught sight of the gigantic 7-headed dragon, spitting fire and roaring, "Who has killed my 2 brothers? Bring him to me that I may slay him." Now the youngest saw that the brothers were paralyzed with fear and completely unable to do anything. So as the boy hurried to grab his sword, he told his brothers about the 2 wells and the 40 maidens and the abandoned treasures, and told them to go back and get those abandoned treasures and then go to the 40 maidens, and that he would take care of the dragon and come back for them. And all the other 39 brothers could do was say, "Okay." And they hopped on their horses and they were gone. So now we return back to the youngest. For as his brothers rode off back to the wells and back to the maidens, the battle began between the prince and the final, largest 7-headed dragon. And this battle was fierce. They fought for a long time, and neither one was able to defeat the other. And when they fought for hours, the dragon trying to pin the boy, and the boy trying to lob off his heads, but neither one could gain any ground. So realizing that the struggle was all in vain, the dragon said to the prince, "Look, let's make this simple. I'll cut you a deal. If you go to the land of Chinimachin and bring me the Padishah's daughter there, I will spare your life." Well, the prince didn't have a lot of options at that point, and so he consented to the condition because he too was too tired to continue fighting. And as the 2 were resting, the dragon revealed to the boy his name of Champalak. And then the dragon gave the prince a bridle and instructed him as follows. "Every day a magic horse Ajigar grazes here. Catch him and put this bridle on him, and command him to take you to the land of Chimimachin." And so the youth took the bridle and waited for the magic horse, as you do in a fairy tale. And so then the golden-hued steed came flying through the air, and the magic horse flew down and began to graze right next to the boy, because the horse had no reason to be afraid of some little human. Now, as the horse grazed right next to the boy seized his opportunity and fastened the bridle, climbed onto the horse, and no sooner was the bridle upon that horse than the horse said, "Command me, little Sultan. Simply shut your eyes and open your eyes." Well, the boy, sitting on the horse, shut his eyes, bing, then opened his eyes, boop. And when he opened his eyes, well, he found himself to be in the far-off land of Chinimachen. He climbed down his horse, removed the bridle, and walked into the city, where he found a hut where an old woman lived. Entering the hut, the boy asked whether she could find him any lodgings, and the woman said willingly, of course, he can stay with her. So she offered him a seat, prepared him some coffee, and while he was drinking, he made some inquiries about the condition of the country. And then the woman said, "A seven-headed dragon has fallen violently in love with our Sultan's daughter. For years there has been war on her account, and we cannot get rid of this monster." "And the Sultan's daughter?" questioned the prince. She inhabits a room in the Padishah's garden where she is safe," answered the old woman, "but she dare not stir a single step from the room for fear of the dragon." Well, the boy decided to help the unfortunate princess, and he had a feeling that this was the very princess that the dragon asked him to find, and so he went to her. So the next day, the prince went to the Padishah's garden and asked the gardener to take him into his service. And the boy, he begged so earnestly that finally the man took pity on him and said, Yes, you may work here, but all I can trust you to do currently is to water the flowers," said the gardener. So this boy watered the flowers. And the Sultan's daughter, from her rooms in the garden, saw this young man dutifully watering the flowers. And she called him over to her window, and she asked him how he came to be in the land. And now the young boy, he told her all about his father, the Padishah, their journey, and how he fought with the seven-headed dragon, Chapalak, and how he had promised to bring him the Sultan's daughter. He was very honest. "But fear not," continued the prince, "because my love is greater than that of that fiendish dragon, and if you will come with me and give yourself to the dragon, I will find his weakness and I will destroy him. Trust me." Now the young girl, the maiden, had herself fallen in love with the handsome prince in this very brief encounter, and she really wanted to escape her room and be able to leave it without fearing the dragon. And so she trusted the prince. In fact, her trust in the prince was so great that that very night they left the room together in secret and returned to Chapalak's plain on that magic horse. And on the way, they discussed just what the maiden might do to discover the source of the dragon's strength, and how they could defeat the dragon and save the girl. Because the boy had reasoned that the dragon must have some outside source of his power, because the dragon truly was unbeatable. The dragon must have a talisman of some sort that held the dragon's power. And the boy figured that if he could find that talisman, then they could destroy the dragon. But as quick as a blink of an eye, they were back in Chapalak's plain. And you can only imagine the dragon's joy when he saw the Sultan's daughter before him. "How wonderful that you have come! How wonderful that you have come!" the dragon repeated again and again, with each head repeating, "How wonderful you have come! How wonderful you have come! How wonderful that you have come!" repeating in turn as the dragon took the princess to his palace. And the dragon, he would caress the poor princess who was weeping all the time. because she did not want to be with the dragon. And let me clarify that in no way should anybody be held against their will and be touched in any way that makes them feel uncomfortable. Consent is key. We need to have consent in all relationships, even if you are a dragon. So now, back to our story. The days and the weeks passed with the princess held captive by the dragon. And the princess never once stopped crying as she was held captive in this terrible situation. Until one day the princess asked, "Oh, dragon, if you would at least tell me what is the source of your power, then perhaps my days would not be quite so long and dreadful." "Oh, my darling," replied the dragon, "my power comes from a talisman, and it is guarded in a place impossible to access. You see, in a certain country, I have a large fortress, and whoever gets into it never gets out again." Now this was all that the prince needed to know, as he overheard the large dragon speaking. So the prince, he took his bridle, and he threw it in the sea, and instantly the magical golden horse appeared. "Oh, what is your command, little sultan?" "To the fortress of the dragon's talisman, please." Well, simply shut your eyes and open them again." And boop! There they were, at the fortress. Now as the prince dismounted from the horse said to him, "Fasten my bridle to the iron rings at the fortress gate. And when I neigh once, knock the rings together, and the gate will open." You see, the gate now is not a gate at all. Rather, it is a lion's jaw disguised as a gate. And if you can cut into the lion's mouth with a single blow of your sword, you will be safe. Otherwise, your last hour has come. Well, the prince did as he was told, and he fastened the magic horse to the rings. And when the horse neighed, the iron gate opened. And now the gate, it really did look like a normal iron gate. It did not look like a lion's mouth. Whatever magic disguised the lion as the gate was truly powerful. And so the boy, with some hesitation, stepped towards the gate. But then, with all of his strength, he swung his sword at that iron gate, and he was prepared to feel the sharp reverberations as the sword struck metal, but no. There was no vibrations at all. The sword continued slicing through the iron gate on its lethal path and cut the gate clean in half. And when the gate was broken in half, the gate's disguise was melted away, and in fact, the boy could see that the gate was the giant maw of a lion, who was now dead. Well, the prince, he opened the lion's stomach and discovered a cage. And in the cage there were 3 doves. And the doves were so beautiful that their equals have never before been seen. And so the boy, taking one of the doves in his hand, he stroked its wonderful feathers, its wonderful plumage, and he caressed it. But then suddenly, it flew away. And the boy was lucky, for if the magic horse had not quickly flown after it and caught it, and wrung its neck, and then the prince would never have a chance to meet his lady love again, for the doves together, all 3 together, formed the dragon's talisman, from which the dragon gained his strength. And so the prince, he took the other 2 doves, and he remounted his magic horse. "Shut your eyes and open your eyes." And then suddenly, boop, boop, he found himself at Chimpalik's palace. The youth dismounted the horse, looked up at the dragon, and locking eyes, the boy killed the other 2 doves. And as soon as he did, the dragon fell and just crumpled down to the floor, unable to move. And seeing the dead doves in the prince's hand, the dragon cried out and implored the boy to simply brush the birds on his scales once more before he died, so he could feel that wonderful plumage. And the youth, perhaps feeling guilt for denying the other 2 dragons' cries for mercy, or perhaps becoming victim to the dragon's powerful use of suggestion, was seized with pity. And the boy was just about to offer the birds to the dragon when the sultan's daughter, the princess, ran in and tore them away. And without the doves, the dragon perished miserably. Now the horse, watching the whole affair, said, "That was fortunate for you, boy, for if a single feather from the dove were to have touched him, then the dragon's strength would have instantly returned, and you would likely be no more." Well, the boy thanked the horse for his service. And as the boy had no more use for a magical bridle and horse, the bridle simply disappeared, and with it, the magic horse, in the blink of an eye. And that magic horse, well, he is likely in greener pastures now. Now the prince and the princess gathered together all of Japalik's dragon treasures, for he had many, and took them to the land of Chinimachen, where they were able to give it to all of the poor people there. Now the Padishah, the girl's father, the princess's father, had become quite ill with worry about the disappearance of his daughter from the garden room. See, searches had been made for her throughout all the entire land, but no one could find her. And so the Padishah had come to the conclusion that she had unfortunately fallen into the dragon's power. But when the princess appeared again safe and sound, he was so glad, and he gladly gave her in marriage to the prince. And the wedding was celebrated with great rejoicings. And after the honeymoon, the couple set back out to the palace of the prince's father, the boy's father. And now the boy's father had thought that the prince had died long ago, and so did all his brothers, who had long ago returned with the treasures from the wells and all of the maidens. In fact, the brothers and the father, thought so much that the prince had died that when the prince and the princess in fact returned, they did not believe them to be who they claimed to be. In fact, they could only believe the prince after the boy told the story of the 3 dragons and the 40 sisters, for only he could know about what happened in that story. But now it was time to address the elephant in the room. For there were 40 original brothers, and there were 40 original maidens. But the youngest brother had gone and married another maiden, the one that he had saved in the garden room. And while he was off on that adventure, his 39 brothers had married 39 out of the 40 maidens. So, there was one of those original maidens found in the well who had no one to marry. Fortunately, the princess, who was saved from the garden room and saved from the dragon, had a brother. And so the princess's brother was able to marry the 40th maiden from the well. And so all 41 of the men and all 41 of the women were able to get married. And thankfully, they were all able to consent and feel joy in their marriages. And together, they all lived in peace and happiness, even though the 40 brothers in the end didn't marry 40 daughters of the same father and mother. I guess they could have married those original 39 in the first place, but I guess that's just how life goes. So there's our story. What a ride that was. I mean, we had just constant adventure, and I guess that's what I like about it, is that it's just always one thing to another. He's fighting a dragon, fighting another dragon. They are off on a flying horse. They're outwitting the dragon. I guess you also have a lot of fairy tale tropes, which, for good, for bad, like the source of power locked away in a far tower, and with the 3 doves. Very tropey that way. You also have the princesses, how they're just kind of taken into marriage, which isn't the best. But yeah, I think the funnest thing is just how it puts a lot of those fairy tale tropes together. And so it's always rolling. And I guess one thing that stood out to me in particular was when the dragon heads rolls into the well and he finds all this treasure, the secret lair under the well, because it actually reminded me of an old video game I used to play as a kid. So it just brought back this wave of nostalgia. It was King's Quest by Sierra, the very first one. And your adventurer goes down this well and he finds a dragon in a hidden corner of the well. And I was just like, that's similar to our story today. So what did we learn from this story? We learned that if your dad says not to go camping by a spring, an inn, or a plane, maybe you should listen to him. We also learned that the adventure that you start out on may not be the adventure that you finish. I just think it's a little bit funny that the brothers were so insistent that they needed 40 sisters to marry out of one family, and then in the end, that's not what they did. And I just think, it all ended out happily ever after for everybody, but I just think that's an interesting takeaway is, again, the adventure that we start out on isn't always the adventure that we end up on. Well, that we end up finishing. Well, now, I'm getting a little bit rambly now, so I think it's time to go to the question bowl and finish this out here. So, question of the day. We got, personal, juicy. If you got a tattoo, what would it be? Well, I don't have any tattoos, and I don't plan on getting any tattoos anytime soon or in the near future. This is just something I don't even ever think about. Because my thing with tattoos is I think there's some great tattoos. I think they can look really cool, but I guess I just sometimes my passions just take me to different places, and I don't want, I'll think something's really cool like for a little while, and then 10 years down the road, I wouldn't be as cool. Like if I was 8, I would be getting like tattoos of Pokemon, but now I don't think I would want Pokemon all over my body. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here as I stall for time. The first thing that comes into my head is just like a really cool like tree, just like with this old tree with all this kind of withered, gnarly bark and these roots twisting down. I think that would be cool. I also want to say an axolotl, because axolotls are cool, and I think that would be just cute to have like a little axolotl on you. But an axolotl wearing sunglasses eating some watermelon. That would be interesting. Yeah, so there you go. I want a tree with an axolotl in the tree eating watermelons. I don't really think axolotls, I don't think they even go in trees. Like they live in ponds and stuff. So whatever. I better stop there. So until next time when we can think over here, ciao.